Hello and welcome to another episode of PodcastDX, the show that brings you interviews with people whose lives have been forever changed by a medical diagnosis. I'm Lita. Ron will not be with us today.
And I'm Jean Marie.
Together we are the hosts of PodcastDX. Today's episode focuses on an essential topic that affects everyone: food safety. Whether you're cooking at home, dining out, or hosting a gathering, food safety plays a critical role in preventing illness and ensuring everyone's well-being.
And this can seem like an overwhelming topic at first, but breaking it into 4 key categories: food preparation, cooking, storage, and food allergies, makes it much easier to manage. Each step builds on the previous one to ensure that the food you make and eat is safe from the moment it enters your home until it's consumed.
Okay. Well,
Except those cookies aren't safe for me. Bring them on.
Let's begin with food preparation.
Okay.
Food safety starts before you even go grocery shopping. Maintaining a clean and sanitized environment in your kitchen is crucial. Wipe down hard surfaces, such as counters and cutting boards, using a solution of 1 teaspoon of bleach per every quart of water that you use to clean. This step helps eliminate bacteria that could transfer to your food.
That's right. When you head to the grocery store, keep food safety in mind. Start by shopping so when you're filling your cart, you're going to start with the shelf-stable items.
Can I ask you something?
Okay.
How come, if that makes sense, and it does make sense, how come they have the vegetables and produce at the beginning of every store?
Well, those are not temperature dependent typically.
Okay.
So you're thinking. So what you want to do is.
Oh, you're talking about meats and cheeses and bread.
Things. Okay, yeah. So things that are cold
Yeah.
need to stay cold, and things that are hot need to stay hot.
Okay. All right, continue. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
So you're going to want to start with your canned goods, your dry goods, and then at the end of your shopping experience, when you're ready to check out, then you want to get your frozen, your refrigerated, and your already prepared hot foods.
Okay.
And this minimizes the amount of time that such items are exposed to warmer or cooler temperatures.
Okay.
So when you're selecting items like raw meat, poultry, or seafood, you want to make sure that they're placed in separate bags so that anything that's leaking from them doesn't contaminate other foods.
Yeah, I have seen where meat will bleed out of the package and get all over everything.
Sure, and you don't want that to get on fresh produce or ready-to-eat foods. And then cross-contamination is also a major concern at this stage.
Okay.
And then when you're checking out, you want to ensure that cold items are still cold, and actually when you're actually picking those items up at the store. So if you're reaching into that freezer section and it's not cold, that's problematic.
Oh.
Or if you're reaching for that hot prepared food item and it's not hot, that's also problematic. In fact, many people who are immunocompromised, for example, are informed that they should not be purchasing such things, such as like hot prepared foods or deli meats or other things where there's the possibility that someone who is not immunocompromised would be fine, but someone who is immunocompromised could have issues.
Okay. Thank you.
And so if you're going to be traveling with your food items for some time, buying an extra bag of ice and keeping a cooler in your car may be the right solution for you.
Okay. Another important tip before heading to the store is to check for food recalls.
Okay.
Some products, such as romaine lettuce or ground beef,
or carrots, or I'm trying to think of the list goes on and
onion.
on and on. Yeah.
Yeah, there has been a lot lately. They're more prone to contamination, and they may be recalled due to pathogens like E. coli or salmonella. You can find recall alerts on the FDA or USDA websites, or you could sign up for notifications.
Oh, okay. And once you have brought your groceries home, proper storage is going to be key to preventing any foodborne illnesses. Cold items should be kept below 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees centigrade in the refrigerator, and frozen items should be stored at 0 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 18 degrees centigrade. Avoid washing raw meat or poultry. That used to be the, de rigueur for cooking, a bird, you would wash it, but that's going to just end up spreading bacteria to other surfaces because the little micro droplets of water are going to splatter everywhere. Instead, focus on washing fruits and vegetables thoroughly under running water. And that includes if you're going to peel them. You still want to make sure that you wash and sometimes scrub them, and a little baking soda, water maybe come into play there too.
Okay. Also, when you're preparing foods, you should use separate cutting boards for different types of food.
Okay.
Now, are they talking about like any time, or are they talking about for each meal that you're making? Like, if I have only one cutting board, can I just wash it in between?
Well, you're going to wash it. Okay, so like there's cleaning and then there's disinfecting.
Okay.
So washing is, and then you're going to want to disinfect it as well. But they kind of recommend that you, if possible, have, like a green cutting board that you're just going to specifically use for produce. And then red is only used for raw meat.
Okay.
And then blue for seafood. And then you might want to have a different cutting surface for cutting the cooked meat once it's been cooked. Because you can't cut the meat on the same cutting board you used
with the raw one.
Raw, right. And that helps prevent contamination from spreading from item to item. So like if you're cutting your produce on a cutting board you just used to cut raw chicken, that's problematic.
Oh, yeah.
And also if you have food allergies, you need to have completely separate utensils to prepare, food for someone who has food allergies, because even, the littlest bit of that allergen can be extraordinarily dangerous.
Right, right. So if ever in doubt, sanitize your cutting boards and utensils, like the knives, after each use.
Right. And now let's talk about the cooking procedure itself.
Okay.
Using a clean and sanitized food thermometer is one of the most effective ways to ensure that your food is safe to eat. And it can be hard to remember all the different temperatures, but you can ask your home assistant if you use a digital home assistant, or you can look it up on the internet, or some people like to have a little magnet on their refrigerator that tells them the temperatures.
Okay.
So each type of meat has a recommended internal temperature, and this is specific to kill the pathogens that are typical for that food item. For example, poultry should be above 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 74 degrees centigrade. Ground meats like beef and pork should be cooked to at least 160 degrees Fahrenheit or 71 degrees centigrade. And then steaks and roasts should reach at least a temperature of 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 63 degrees centigrade. And they also should rest for a few minutes so that the juices are reabsorbed. And this is, for example, to prevent in pork, there's, the trichinosis.
That's a worm, right?
Yeah, and you don't want trichinosis or, surviving if it happens to be in the pork product. And there are some cases in the United States every year of trichinosis, typically from people eating like wild boar. Okay. And it's undercooked wild boar, but that'll actually burrow into your meat, into your own muscle tissue. And from what I understand, can be quite painful. Huh. So when in doubt, make sure your meat is cooked properly. And I have to say, we had a lovely Thanksgiving and one of the best turkeys I've ever had.
Oh.
It was a humanely raised turkey, and it was wonderfully cooked.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a question about that ground meat temperature. Mm-hmm. So some people like their burgers on the medium rare side.
Right. Some people like a little side of bacteria.
Okay, so if that's their preference,
and
yeah, or steak tartare.
Yeah. Well, in steak tartare, it has its place. I mean, the tartars.
They use a vinegar?
No,
right?
The tartars. They couldn't cook the meat because they were being, that was a risk fire was a risk because it would alert your enemies. But if you need to know where your meat is coming from,
Okay.
and you need to know that that is a risk. And on many menus, you will see that it specifies that eating raw or undercooked meat or poultry or eggs is problematic,
Okay.
or seafood.
Right. Like oysters. They, now there's been a lot on the news about raw oysters causing death.
Well, yeah, so food when cooked properly should be fine.
Right.
But if it's prepared, cooked, or stored improperly,
You might be in
it
trouble.
can be problematic.
All right. Well, beside temperatures, maintaining the proper food temperatures after the cooking is equally important.
Right.
Hot foods, let's say you just got done with making your dinner. Hot foods should remain above 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees centigrade, and cold foods should stay below 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees centigrade.
Right.
Now, during parties or gatherings, you should use tools like chafing dishes, slow cookers, or trays of ice to keep foods at the correct temperature.
Yeah, I will say I may have skipped a party or two because I've been out in the past and noticed that everyone just brings their food, puts it on the counter, and then we eat an hour or two later. And I don't know how long that food's been out.
Yeah, it's like a free-for-all, huh?
Yeah,
For the bacteria, anyway.
it is.
Perishable foods
Sure. It's
Left-
food from a parish that is also going to go bad.
left out for more than 2 hours should be thrown away to prevent the growth of harmful bacteria.
And we're going to move on to food storage.
All right.
And it's a good idea to divide leftovers or food that you've prepared into small, shallow containers. This allows foods to cool more quickly in the refrigerator, and you never want to put something hot directly in the refrigerator. And this minimizes the risk of bacterial growth. And then you should also, this is an extra step that many of us, I know, I'm one of those people that needs to get in the habit of doing this. You should label your containers with the date
Okay.
to ensure that leftovers are used promptly or disposed of.
Okay.
And most refrigerated items should be consumed within 3 to 4 days. And things like if you're ordering food and you've ordered a side of rice, the rice should be recooked at least no more than one time. And,
Okay, so don't recook it and recook it and recook
right,
it. Okay.
right. And I think that kind of holds true for
Anything?
anything, yeah.
Okay.
But it can be extremely dangerous to constantly. Rice can be problematic as well.
Okay. When you're thawing or marinating foods, you should always do so in the refrigerator.
Let's just stick with that.
Okay, all right. And then thawing food on the counter at room temperature is a very common mistake that increases the risk of bacteria multiplying.
And finally, let's address we talked about this briefly, but food allergies.
Okay.
It's an area of food safety that can be life-saving or life-threatening. Food allergies occur when the immune system overreacts to a specific protein in a food. The most common allergens include peanuts, tree nuts, milk, eggs, wheat, soy, fish, and shellfish. And symptoms of an allergic reaction can range from mild, such as itching and swelling, and that might be something you think of, to nausea and vomiting and feeling, just a general unease or unwell. And they can vary between adults and children. So if you're at all concerned, ask your healthcare provider or your child's healthcare provider what to look out for. In severe cases, they can result in breathing difficulty, in anaphylaxis, and even death. And so for someone, for example, who has a nut allergy, they can't have nuts in their food. They also cannot have probably nut oils in their food and other, things that are derived from nuts. And it's a very, very serious issue. It shouldn't be taken lightly. And if someone does have an allergy, always, side on caution. If you don't know what's in that food, I would not eat that food.
Okay.
And you know what? I know I wouldn't have a problem with someone bringing their own food products to an event and using disposable serveware, plates and silverware that are compostable.
Okay.
So that there's no risk of, nobody wants a death at a party.
No, right.
And for those with known allergies, carrying an epinephrine auto-injector such as an EpiPen is essential, and quick administration of an epinephrine can help prevent some severe consequences during an allergic reaction, but it's not always enough. And even but if you do know someone or you yourself have food allergies and do have an EpiPen, make sure that your friends and family know the proper procedure.
And where it is.
And where it is, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It's also worth noting that schools, restaurants, and even some public spaces are now keeping epinephrine on hand to address emergencies. If you or someone in your family has a food allergy, consider wearing a medical alert bracelet and educating others, like you were saying, about the allergy to avoid accidental exposure.
Yeah, I think about the every year at Thanksgiving, I think about the Red Shoe campaign.
What's
and
that?
It's a family was away for the holidays, and their son had nut allergies, and it was a known allergy, and he was going to eat a piece of cake, and they asked, are there nuts in this? And they said, no, there's no nuts. Well, it had walnut oil in it.
Oh.
And the boy died.
Oh, my God.
So, it's about educating others as well as having that education yourself.
I know that Dominic, our
Yes.
sound engineer,
Right.
has a severe nut allergy.
Right. And we're always afraid we're going to kill him.
Yes.
We almost gave him pesto one time.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really, 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 it's something that the patient or the person that has the allergy has to learn about, even at a young age. Even children need to
Right.
know, because,
Right.
You don't want your kid going to school and there's a birthday party and all of a sudden,
I've heard about like grandparents being like, oh, no, it'll be okay.
Right.
So yeah, it's,
Dangerous times.
Yep.
And the reason we're doing this particular episode right now is because we're around the holiday seasons. There is going to be a lot of
We're out and
potluck,
about.
potluck or whatever, and you got to take food safety seriously.
Right. And food safety is something that we all need to take seriously. And as we've said at every stage. So if you're preparing, cooking, or storing the food, or even if you're making accommodations for food allergies, we applaud you. And a few simple precautions can help protect you and your loved ones from foodborne illnesses and allergic reactions. And if you're packing up some food to go home or food to go home for your loved ones, make sure that you store it in small containers and make sure that it's cold. So if they're going, maybe you want to pop that in the freezer. And this way it'll, be cold, but still cold when they get home.
Okay.
And just take extra steps because a little bit of caution can, go a long way.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today for this informative episode. We hope you found the tips and strategies useful. Sounds like our dog did. If you have questions or feedback about today's topic, please feel free to reach out to us through our website, social media, or email.
As always, please keep in mind that this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regime, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you've heard on this podcast.
Till next week.